All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to look way beyond the yoga mat and the stretchy pants to get to the heart of what yoga was originally all about. We're talking about the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Think of it less as a workout plan and more like an ancient, incredibly detailed map for mastering your own mind. So let me ask you a question. When you hear the word yoga, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, right, it's about physical poses, stretching, maybe a little stress relief. But is that really it? Is that the whole story? Not even close. It's kind of wild, but what we think of as yoga today, the physical postures or hatha yoga, is actually a much later development. Patanjali, the sage who literally wrote the book on this, defined yoga as the science of the mind. The physical stuff, that was developed to help the body sit still long enough to do the real work, which is going inward. Okay, so if yoga is a science, then what's the problem it's trying to solve? Well, Patanjali gets straight to the point. The problem is the constant chaos and restlessness of our own minds. And he even gives this chaos a name, chitta vrittis. You can think of chitta as the raw material of your mind, just this field of awareness. And the vrittis, those are all the waves, the ripples, the whirlpools, your thoughts, your emotions, your memories. You know, that endless mental chatter that just does not seem to stop. And this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important sentence in the entire text. Right at the beginning, Patanjali just lays it all out. He says, the restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. That's it. The whole science, the whole goal is packed right into that one line. It's not about the perfect pose, it's about calming those waves. To explain this, Patanjali uses this incredible analogy. He says to imagine your mind is a mirror. Now, when that mirror is constantly rippling and churning with thoughts, the reflection you see of yourself gets all distorted, right? You start to believe you are your worries or you are your anger. But when the mirror becomes perfectly still, you can finally see a true reflection of your peaceful, unchanging self. And this guy, Patanjali, he was incredibly methodical. He actually categorized all those mental waves into 5 basic types. And look at this list. It covers everything from knowing something correctly to misunderstanding it to memory. He even includes sleep as a modification of the mind. It just shows you how deep his analysis really went. So how do we do it? How do we actually calm those waves and smooth out that mirror? Well, thankfully, Patanjali doesn't just diagnose the problem. He gives us a practical, step-by-step instruction manual, a map to inner peace, and it's known as the 8-limbed path. And the destination on this map is very clear. The goal is a state where the mind is so still that the seer, that's you, your true, quiet, witnessing consciousness, can just rest in its own nature. It's not about achieving some new amazing thing. It's about returning to the peace that you already are, underneath all the noise. And here it is. This is the map itself, the 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. As you can see, it's a very logical progression, starting with how we act in the world and moving deeper and deeper into our own inner state. So let's walk through some of the key stages. Now, the order of this path is everything. It's so important. And you might be surprised to see where it begins. It doesn't start on a yoga mat. It starts with how we live our daily lives. The first 2 limbs, the yamas and niyamas, are all about building a solid ethical foundation. Patanjali's logic is just brilliant. He's basically saying, look, how can you possibly expect to have a quiet mind if your life is full of chaos? Practices like truthfulness and contentment create the stable ground you need to do the deeper inner work. Okay, 3rd limb in, now we finally get to asana, or posture. But its purpose is probably not what you think. The goal isn't fitness. The whole point is to find a posture that is so steady and so comfortable that you can completely forget about your body. You park it, so it's not a distraction, and that frees up your mind to go inward. The 5th limb, pratyahara, is a massive turning point on this journey. This is where you consciously withdraw your senses from the outside world. It's like you're closing all the doors and windows of your mind to stop the constant flood of sights and sounds and smells so you can finally deal with what's going on inside. From there, we move to dharana. This is the beginning of real concentration. It's the active effort of trying to hold your mind on one single thing. You know, you try to focus on a rose, and within seconds, your mind is like, oh, a rose, that reminds me of that movie. Was that King Kong? What am I going to have for dinner? Dharana is the practice of gently, over and over again, bringing your mind back from King Kong to the rose.
Now, when that concentration stops being such a struggle and becomes effortless, it flows into the next limb, dhyana. This is true meditation. The classic analogy is just perfect. It's like oil pouring in a smooth, continuous, unbroken stream. Your mind is no longer jumping all over the place, it just stays put. And that leads to the final limb, samadhi, or absorption. This is where things get really profound. In this state, the whole distinction between you, the person meditating, and the thing you're meditating on, it just dissolves. There's no more, I am meditating on the rose. There is only rose. That sense of a separate self just melts away. Now, this is where things get really wild. Book 3 of the Sutras starts talking about something called siddhis. These are basically accomplishments or, well, superpowers that can arise from these deep states of concentration. We're talking about things like knowing your past lives or understanding the language of any creature. But, and this is a huge but, Patanjali gives this very stern warning. He says these powers are just sideshows on the way to the king's party. Getting fascinated with them is like stopping to watch street performers when you've got an invitation to the main event. They are a massive distraction from the real goal, which is eternal peace. So, if it's not about getting superpowers, what is the ultimate destination? What's the king's party? Well, the final book of the Sutras lays out the ultimate state of freedom you can achieve. It's a state called kaivalya, which you could translate as absoluteness or total independence. This is it. This is the supreme state where your consciousness, finally free from all those distortions of the mind, just settles back into its own pure, peaceful nature. It really is the ultimate homecoming.
And here's what might be the most empowering part of this whole thing. This liberation, this freedom. It's not some promise for after you die. The goal is to become what's known as a jivan mukta, a soul who is fully liberated while still living, breathing, walking around in the world. To live with a still mind, in a state of deep peace, right here, right now. Which really brings this whole ancient map right back to us, doesn't it? It offers a path to complete mastery over our inner world, a way to silence the noise and find a peace that's always there. So, the question is, what would you do with a quiet mind?